Alrighty. How you doing, folks? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report, along with Ross Benjamin from Ross Benjamin Sport. This is a special college football edition for Thursday, September 10th. How do you like the sound of that, Ross?
I love it. The NFL starts today, a college football game between UAB and Miami of Florida. And then not a full slate of games on Saturday, but still, we got more games than we had last Saturday, that's for sure. And then Sunday, the NFL, full slate of games, 2 Monday night games, like Christmas, Ron.
Yeah, speaking of Christmas, you got the Christmas lights behind you there. It looks like you're sitting in the back of the Westgate or something. That looks really good.
Hey, it's got to have the look, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It looks great. And so folks, if you are new to the Rain Report, along with Ross Benjamin, what we do here each and every day, we have a podcast from Monday to Friday. And depending on the time of year, we were going through a bit of NBA, NHL, and then now with football here, we've dedicated Thursday to college football, and then Fridays will be our football show. And then Monday to Wednesday, we'll also have some fill-ins, but we'll be more concentrating. My wife said to me the other day, she goes, "What are you going to do in November?" I said, "Oh, no." I said, "We'll cross that bridge when we get there." Because,
yeah. Well, in November, there'll still be plenty of action in college football and the NFL for us to break up the schedule. You know what I mean? We'll figure it out. We'll get by. There's always something to talk about.
There's July. There's, I'm sure there's.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully college basketball plays this year as well. So, we'll figure it out. Like I said, it should be a full slate of games in college football by early November, and also. The NFL will be in full bloom, so we could divide the show up 5 ways in football. And what Ron's wife is referring to is the NBA, which usually is going on in November, and hockey normally going on in November because of this COVID-19 thing. The schedule starts to the seasons this coming season, I should say, or the next season. Boy, oh boy, is that confusing. I believe all falls around in December, right, Ron, as far as the NHL and the NBA.
Yeah, and watching the wire, they're talking about drafts and free agency. Like, it's going to be crazy. It was crazy in August, September. Now we'll just wait till the NBA and NHL stop. This is the frenzies of the agency. The free agents are going to go all over the place, and you're already hearing rumors, on Chris Paul and all those guys where they might end up. So,
what the heck with it, Ron? Right now, we got a full season of football ahead of us. Let's concentrate on the positive. Let's get right to these games, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kicks off tonight with the NFL Thursday night between the Chiefs and the Texans. And then we got a full slate of college football. And we're going to talk about that right now. We're going to go right into screen share.
Let me just say this if I can, Ron. I don't know what you got going on tonight, but I do have a 5-star against the spread winning side in the college football game between Miami, Florida, and UAB tonight. That's 8 o'clock on ESPN. And I do have the winning total, 10-star top play total on the NFL game tonight between Houston and Kansas City. And I've done awfully well with NFL 10-star top play totals over the years, going 25 and 15. Since 2013, just 40 plays over the last 8 years, Ron. But, I've been selective with that, and I have one tonight. So you have anything on tap for this evening in either football game?
Well, maybe the Thursday nighter, but right now it's with COVID and all that, I'm concentrating on my week 1 selections. Yep. And I don't like forcing, and it's not that.
No, it's not. You're right.
Yeah, it's just I like to put a toe in before I start because we're going in blind. I said this in one of my videos this week. Normally we have a bit of a preseason games to look at. But everybody is going in blind. I have a nice video on week 1, how teams have done week 1 the last 7 years, and I'll give you a little Raymond tickler right here, right off the top, right off the top.
All right, look, let's have it, brother.
Yeah, let's get that tickler out there. Yeah. The Detroit Lions week 1, the total 7-0. Week 1
over the total. Wow,
over the total.
Yeah, and they're playing Chicago. We'll see. It's a tough call with the Chicago defense, but Matthew Stafford's back, Ron, and I think Detroit's going to be extremely improved. And my sleeper pick was on the Bears to win the division. So that will be a really intriguing matchup for me to watch.
Yeah. And let's see if, the head coach of the Detroit Lion, Matt Patricia,
Yeah.
let's see how he's going to do. Like, he's had a couple of mulligan seasons here. This, his third year now he's going in?
Yeah. I mean, and he was a defensive coordinator at Detroit, Ron, and they've done nothing defensively to lead you to believe he's a defensive genius like he was labeled in New England. You wonder now how much of that was Belichick compared to him, because they haven't been able to stop anybody over the last 2 years.
Hey, Ross, I've coached football a long time, and I can tell you by being around coaches, some coaches are just, hate to use this terminology because it's, they're good bridesmaid, not good brides type things.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy, actually, Ron.
And the thing is, sometimes the pressure of being the guy, dealing with the media, dealing with distractions, locker room issues. When you're a DC or an OC, you don't worry about that crap. You're just doing X and O's, and your job is to get your offense or defense ready for this week. And then when you're the head coach, you gotta manage the ship. So you're seeing Josh McDaniels. He was a head coach, and look at that. It didn't he was young though. I'll give him that. When he was in Denver, but back to New England.
Yeah. Romeo Crennel. Yeah. Bill O'Brien's done well. He's the exception to the rule, but for the most part, these guys from the Belichick tree have not succeeded as head coach. Not like the Andy Reid tree, Ron. I mean, you as a head coach would understand that more. I mean, again, me being a novice in that regard, and I defer to you on that. I mean, certain head coaches might groom assistants to be a head coach someday, where I think Bill Belichick is more of he appoints you as a coordinator, but at the end of the day, he has the final say. Like you said, the best thing you ever did as a head coach was to relinquish all the worrying about an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator duties or micromanaging what they're doing. Correct?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think Andy Reid is a perfect example of that. And Bill Belichick is the polar opposite. And the results are in the pudding.
Yeah. Hey, it's at the end of the day, Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are.
Yep.
And whatever works for you. But I 100% going back to, if I ever go back coaching again, I would never be a head coach in OC again. It's just way too much on my plate.
Well, Bill Parcells is another example, Ron. I mean, he had Belichick as his defensive coordinator, Sean Payton as his offensive coordinator. So he developed coaches as well. So it's sort of interesting to look at that. I mean, I think a lot of people overlook that when somebody, and you should look at that when somebody it becomes a new head coach, especially in the NFL. What tree did he come from, and what kind of success did his former colleagues have before him? So anyway,
college football, Thursday night football tonight. Miami taking on UAB. I know you got a big play on this, so I'll give what we're going to do, folks, with these college editions and NFL shows now. We're going to use the rain report, the forecast. We're going to give you the computer, the algorithm selections. We'll take a look at if there's anything that really stands out, maybe give an opinion or a pick on some of the games, and then we move on to the next one. All right, so Miami taking on UAB. Computer pick here, Ross, has a little bit of a blowout here. 41.79, 19.97. Miami first game of the year. UAB played last week, coming off 45-35 win over Central Arkansas. And this will be Diaz's, second year now?
Yes.
As a head coach for
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all eyes on Diaz this season.
Yeah. A nice acquisition with Derek King coming over from Houston as their quarterback. Nice resume at Houston. Should upgrade Miami's offense because if anything, they've had a lot of instability at quarterback over the last few years. UAB has the benefit of having one game under their belt, like Ron alluded to. The 45-35 score wasn't really indicative of UAB really dominated that game statistically, but turnovers and short fields sort of made that game a little bit closer than the final score indicates, Ron.
Second game, we got Syracuse taking on North Carolina, the Tar Heels. And I've coached one of the players on that team, Patrice Rene. He's the DB. I think he's going in his fourth year. Good. He had some injuries the last couple of years. Now they're taking on Syracuse. You can tell our programmers this is going way back, the Orangemen.
Yeah.
Syracuse Orange. Looking at the computer break here, Ross, 42.25, 20.35 favoring the Tar Heels.
Right on the nose, Ron.
Right on the nose. And, the line, yeah, that's right. I forgot to give out the odds in that first game. Let's do that. Let's go back up and give the odds because we're still in the odds business, right?
Yes, we are.
14-point favorite for Miami. The over-under at 54.5. So, the bookmakers, you know what? Compared to that last game of 80 points scored,
Yeah.
a little bit of a difference. And what was the line here? 50. And UAB was a minus 21 against Central Arkansas in their last game. North Carolina, I saw minus 22.5. And the over-under set at 66. So Syracuse going on the road here. See if there's any prior. I think they played 4 times. The series is split. Last time they met, according to the Rain Report, was October 20th, 2018, where Syracuse was a 10-point favorite, and the over-under was at 66.5. Now, that game was at Syracuse, 40-37. Crazy ending, I believe, in that one. 40-37 win for Syracuse. 77 points scored in the game. It's just crazy when you start thinking college football, the amount of points. Ross, the thing I always say in college football and in the NFL, in the NFL, you got 11 positions. Of those 11 positions, they're all good. They're all stud athletes. And in college football, you got some guys, and depending on the program, of the 11 positions, you might have 3 or 4 that are NFL ready. But the rest, these guys are still, coming out of high school.
Yeah, if they're NFL ready these days, they're in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't stick around very long. Here's the thing, Ron, too. Syracuse, new OC, new defensive coordinator, shortened off season because of COVID-19, 4 returning starters on defense. That's it. Sam Howell had a terrific freshman season last year, a quarterback from North Carolina, threw for 35 touchdowns. He's in the Heisman conversation early on. In the Syracuse defense, Ron, like I alluded to, 4 returning starters. They bring over the DC from San Diego State, Ron. It's running a 3-3-5 defense. Now, I don't know if there's any college football programs running that type of defense. He had a lot of success with it against San Diego State. My question is inexperience on that side of the ball, a shortened off season, no spring game, summer camp, that's it, and trying to install a new defensive scheme that's so unique.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
33 defense is basically 33 stack. So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to confuse the linemen on where the outside linebacker or the middle linebackers are. And normally they're used to seeing either 2 or 2 linebackers. And then when you throw a third one in, now you're taking away, like if you're normally a 40 defense, 4-man lineman, now you got these linebackers stacked below, above the down linemen, so they can come out of nowhere. And the thing with football and in defense, and I always tell this to our players, depending where the tailback is, they're trying to outnumber you at the point of attack. So if you, let's say you're in shotgun and you put the quarterback to your left, well, they're going to send 4 guys to your right because there's 3 down linemen, but that extra 4th guy is on my left now. And if they send 4 to the right, someone's got to make a crossbody block to block that guy, and the tailback's going to have to move. So, man, I don't think this is the year you start experimenting with defenses. And, not a good – to me, if you're going to put in a new defense, I don't think this was the season to do it because with the no contact in practice, not a good way to start the year.
Yeah, in their defense too, Ron, the hire was made right after last season when Dino Babers was disappointed with that 5-7 year last year after a 10-3 year before that. So he changed both his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator in December last year. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. So it wasn't like he hired this guy in April. You know what I mean? So they're sort of stuck with the hand you've been dealt. And but it's, we talked about this yesterday in the other show I'm on. A lot of these guys saying, that's a lot of points to be laying in a season opener against a program like Syracuse. Well, to me, it looks like a trap. It opened at 19. It's up to 22 and a half. They're begging you to take Syracuse. Now, I'm not saying that I like North Carolina in the game, but I'm going to stay away. I mean, the combination of all that, what we just talked about, if anything, if you put the proverbial gun to my head, I would certainly lay the points because of the reasons we just alluded to. Syracuse also, Ron, their top 2 running backs on the depth chart opted out just a week and a half ago or so because of the COVID-19 thing. So on top of everything else, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And Mac Brown had a good start to the season last year. If you remember last year, North Carolina, they were in the conversation of being in there. I think they were ranked in the top 25 too. It had a good start, but then just.
I think they may have been. They were 4-6, and they won their last 3 games, including a bowl game, which was a huge accomplishment compared to where they were. I think they were 2-10 the season before that, Ron.
Yep.
So, I mean, in any event, it was a positive, right?
Yeah,
when you're coming off a 2-10 campaign, you finish with 3 straight wins and win a bowl game.
Hey, all I remember is Mac Brown dancing in the locker room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You got to love Mac Brown.
Yeah. It's new era of football. It's old school coach, right? He was at Texas. Syracuse 3-7 on the road, Ross, since '96 during week 2 of college football season. So history has not been kind to Syracuse. And like you said, with that 33 defense, it's going to take some time for, I listened to a guy the other day talk on ESPN, and he made a good point. These college athletes right now and these teams have not had real good practice. One game is like 10 practices.
Yeah.
So,
you got to lean on continuity a little bit this year, Ron. Continuity in coaching staffs, continuity as far as returning starters. That's what I'm going to be looking at heavily early on.
Yeah. Iowa State taking on the UL Lafayette Raging Cajuns. Now, the Cyclones are 11.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 56.5. ATS forecast, computer pick, sees the Cyclones winning by 18 here, 38.22 to 20.15. Over-under at 58.37, so just 2 points above the posted total. Now, looking at if there's any history between these two teams, there isn't any. And you know what? Iowa State, I remember a couple of years ago, they were having a really good season. Last year, mediocre,
disappointing mediocre.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much hype with this head coach in Iowa State that he was he is a good coach, but can't taking this one.
Scratching my head, Ron, because we have the number 11 team currently ranked in the nation in the AP poll, and they're just an 11.5-point home favorite against a Sun Belt team. Now, this Sun Belt team's pretty damn good, Ron. I mean, they were 11-3 last year. Their 3 losses, 2 came against Appalachian State. 1 came in the Sun Belt Conference game, title game, I should say. They've reached the Sun Belt Conference title game 2 years in a row, lost to Appalachian State both times. Their only other loss was in their season opener against Mississippi State last year. Brock Purdy, quarterback for Iowa State, is in the Heisman Trophy talk right now, and before the season starts. And Iowa State's got Iowa next too. So that's a big rivalry, Ron. And they've lost 5 straight to the Hawkeyes. So real danger spot for me. It looks like Iowa State too good to be true with all things considered. But when it normally isn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it comes to sports betting. So
the head coach of Iowa State is Matt Campbell. And normally what happens in the college rank, it's like the real world, right? It's like life. You get promoted. And a lot of these high school coaches, you're not given Michigan, Ohio State right out of high school, and you got to prove yourself. He was at Toledo where he had a 35-15 record, 24-8 in the conference, and then in 2016 he took over the job at Iowa State when he had a 3-9 year, but turned it around the next year by going 8-5 the next 2, but 7-6 last year.
Yeah, that last year was really disappointing. Like I said, Ron, because they were in the talk for a possible sleeper for the Big 12 championship, and they didn't live up to expectations whatsoever.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say though with Matt Campbell, he
Yeah.
was like, I remember a lot of big programs were gunning for him because of how he turned around Iowa State in the first 3 years. But then that last year, and with COVID didn't help. But he's probably one of the guys you're going to see in the next couple of years when say in Oklahoma or Texas job, or those type of schools. I'm not saying those schools are going to open up for a job, but whenever a big Div 1 program in the top 20 opens up, Matt Campbell's name most likely will be in the
unless Iowa State wants to pony up, you know what I mean, and give them a lucrative contract, which that's not been in their history. Well, but we'll see.
Yeah, so watching this game, doing the next game here, Appalachian State, how can you not relate that Michigan game with this program right here, right?
Yeah,
how many times did they show that preview in the last couple of weeks on ESPN? And looking at and you know what? Watching the replay there, they almost got another touchdown at the end. They got tackled on that block field goal.
Block field goal, yep.
Yeah, -17 here, Ross, is the price on the Appalachian State up against the 49ers of Charlotte, over-under at 59.5. ATS forecast, computer pick, going to go with Appalachian State here, 42.07, 18.13, and the over-under at 60.22. Now, this will be the second meeting between these two teams. They met here on September 7th of 2019, 41-56. Man, almost the same score as that Atlanta Brave game last night.
Yeah, exactly.
and then in 2018, 45-9. So, Charlotte didn't score many points in 2018, but they did last year. And looking at some of the spreads here, month of September for Charlotte, 3-7 the last 3 seasons in the month of September. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one here, Ross?
Yeah, it's a tough one because if you look at the opener was App State -20.5. It's down to 16.5, Ron. Third head coach in 3 years for App State. We talked about, you were talking about Matt Campbell and using specific programs as stepping stones. Well, App State has been a stepping stone for head coaches. Ilya Drinkowitz, 1 year with App State last year. They won 11-2. They won the Sun Belt. They won a bowl game. He gets hired as Missouri's new head coach. Scott Satterfield wins the Sun Belt 2 years before that. He gets hired as Louisville's new head coach last year. So now we're looking at the new head coach, Sean. Yeah, and he's an assistant. He's been with the program since 2016. He's been an assistant, with the program since 2016. So they definitely keep their hires in-house, like Satterfield and Drinkowitz were. Great program, Ron. 43-10 over the last 4 years.
Wow.
That's outstanding. And, this guy from the coach from Charlotte, Healy, this is a guy who took over prior to coming to Charlotte, took over an Austin P program that had gone 1-45 in the prior 4 years and turned them around with an 8-4 record. Immediately gets hired by Charlotte. He takes over a program in Charlotte that was 12-36 the prior 3 years and post a winning record last year in a bowl appearance.
Wow.
So here, to say the least, looks like a trap. Don't get too excited about laying the points at home with Appalachian State here. I like the direction the Charlotte program's going as well. And it's hard for me to fade Appalachian State with the kind of success they've had over the last 4 years, Ron.
University of Texas San Antonio taking on the Texas State Bobcats. And the Bobcats here, I believe they played last week.
They did.
Yeah, 31 against 24-31 against SMU. Very respectable.
Yep.
But they were a favorite.
No, they were an underdog. They were a big underdog.
Okay, 23.5. That's right. I'm reading this wrong. 23.5 point underdog. So kept it very respectable against SMU.
Yep. And
looking at the forecast here, sees another tight game here. 25.79, 23.5. The over under at 49.21. And just checking to see the last time these two teams met was in 2018, where Texas State lost 25-21 as the to University of Texas San Antonio as a 7-point favorite. The over/under in that game was 49. And Texas State last weekend, 24 points against SMU, which is a program that I think that had a pretty good season last year, turned it around. And what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I like the way Texas State looked last week. You're looking at a program that was 2-10 a season ago. I like their new quarterback, who is a transfer from Memphis. His name escapes me, but he's got a lot of moxie. He's one of those quarterbacks, as you as a coach, Ron, would be doing a lot of no, all right, because he takes a lot of chances, and that's okay when you're talking about a program that was lethargic offensively. I like the way the receivers looked last week. The only problem for me in picking them over UTSA is this game opened at 6. It's up to 8.5. I'll have to see the line movement over the next 24 to 48 hours before I made any kind of definitive action on this game.
Yeah, Brady McBride is the quarterback you're talking about.
Yeah.
And last week he went 21 for 39, 53.8 passing percentage, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns. So something to look at this weekend. And it's tough with this week 2 in a COVID era. There's no Pac-12, there's no Big Ten. We'll see what's going to happen down the road with those conference if they ever decide to come back and play, right?
Yep.
Kansas State taking on Arkansas State, and looking at the line on this game, minus 10.5 for the Wildcats, and the over/under set at 54. ATS forecast, computer pick, going to go with Kansas State here, Ross. 35.9, 15.15. The over/under at 51.08. Looking at last week, Arkansas State played Memphis. They were an 18-point underdog. They held their own. 37-24 was the win for Memphis, and they haven't met before. And I'm just trying to see if some of the stats here that anything really comes out. Versus Big 12 opponents on the road since '96. Obviously, they haven't played a lot of them. But the under are perfect, 4-0.
Yeah, Arkansas State, 2 experienced quarterbacks. They'll be able to move the ball. Don't know what we're going to get from Kansas State in the season opener. This is one of those games that I'm going to educate myself on. You got a team in Arkansas State with some experience, like I said, and they're playing in their second game against a team playing in the season opener. Now, there's 2 schools of thought, Ron. One is you got a game under your belt against a team that hasn't gone live yet. Number 2 is Kansas State had a very good look at what Arkansas State does. Again, this is a tough call for me, buddy.
Yeah, no, looking at Kansas State, Skylar Thompson's the quarterback. Going to enter his 4th season, coming off a year last year in 2019. Completed 177 passes of 297 for 59.6%. Threw for over 2,315 yards, 12 touchdowns. So obviously, and the thing is,
he's a threat with his legs too, if I recall correctly, Ron.
Yeah, and the thing is, in college football, every year is it's such a huge difference for these programs that a quarterback comes in, because they know. And having coached at university, I remember my first year coaching Ottawa U. I get the playbook from Coach Breezy, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, this ain't a playbook, it's an encyclopedia. And the thing is, I was hired like a week before training camp. And I'm like, oh man, you're really
that's a lot to absorb.
Oh yeah. So just to my point though, anytime you get a quarterback who comes in, and depending on, the thing with quarterbacks, and that's my specialty, what I coach quarterbacks, is the retainability of plays. Because there's some quarterbacks will only have, like, I remember talking to the coach and they say, okay, quarterback, is he a 20-play quarterback? Is he a 35-play quarterback? Like, how many plays can we give this quarterback going into this game here this weekend? And because some quarterbacks, you throw a lot of plays at them, they get confused.
They get overwhelmed.
They get overwhelmed. And the dangerous thing with a quarterback, if he's a thinking quarterback, you're in trouble. Yeah,
you're not playing. You're not playing fast. And again, Ron, to your point, it goes back to football IQ. At that point, do you have to reduce the playbook, like you said, or can you open it up a bit more with the guy who's got the ability to retain more? and perform on the field with what you said without overthinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next matchup, if it was March Madness, would be quite a good one here, but we're in college football right now. And Notre Dame joining the ACC during for one season. I don't know what the deal was, if it was all forever or.
No, it's just for this one season because they lost so many games. I mean, they had games scheduled against the Big Ten. They had games scheduled against the Pac-12 as well. So they had a lot to make up. And the ACC, having eliminated most of their non-conference schedule for their teams, they went to a 10-game schedule. So it was a perfect fit,
Okay.
for Notre Dame.
So Notre Dame, a 19.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 56. ATS forecast, the computer pick, going to lean with Notre Dame here, 39.52, 20.07. The over-under at 59.59. So it does like this to go over the total. And looking at, it just amazes me sometimes the computer algorithms, how it's
real on close, huh?
Oh, it's like, picking straws here, trying to get the edge. Now, this will be the fourth meeting. And looking at the prior meetings, Notre Dame won in 2019, 38-7. They were a 7-point favorite. And then also in 2016, 38-35 for Duke. And then Notre Dame 28-7 in 2007. So we do have 3 games to, between the history between these two teams. And looking at some of the stats here, nothing really to write home about, but Notre Dame week 2 at home, Ross, 7-3 since 96.
Yeah. Tough call for me, Ron. Notre Dame on paper is the far more talented team. Notre Dame, I correlate them to the New York Yankees and the Dallas Cowboys. Real popular teams that no matter what the line is or who they're playing, they're going to get public action. So it's really hard to gauge in that regard. Secondly, David Cutcliffe, veteran head coach, 13th year now at Duke, and he's done miracles at Duke. I mean, he had Daniel Jones a couple of years ago, ended up being the number 1 choice of the New York Giants at quarterback. He's had a couple good quarterbacks. They're coming off a 5-7 year, but one thing to keep in mind, with Cutcliffe, he's been a moneymaker. They're just 72-79 in 12 years straight up with Cutcliffe, but 73-57-8 against the spread, Ron. And a pretty good underdog play with Cutcliffe since he's been at Duke.
I've trained some quarterbacks, and they've had being recruited. We had this one quarterback who's being recruited. He's going to go to Penn State. His name is Christian Veyer, and I remember him telling me he got a visit to Duke. And the one thing I asked him, I said, "How was your visit at Duke?" And he said it was a great visit. This quarterback, the head coach at Duke, was amazing. If it wasn't for some reason he loved Penn State, but he said if it wasn't for that, he was going to Duke because of Cutcliffe. He absolutely loved this coach. Yeah. And he said there was something about him that he really enjoyed his visit there, and that he learned a lot in his visits with Cutcliffe, but he ended up going to Penn State. Yeah. But for Notre Dame, Ross, they're going to go with Ian Book here. And then last year, 240 passes, 309 attempts for 60.2%, over 3,000 yards. Let's see what kind of
took a lot of criticism though, Ron. You know what I mean? He had a lot of hype going into last year, and because of all that hype, a lot of players would be receive a lot of accolades for what he did last year. I mean, they were 10-3 last year, or 11-2. I can't recall off the top of my head. But with those kind of numbers, you shouldn't take the type of criticism he took. And I look for him to have a big year this year. To your point on Cutcliffe, I've heard that many times, not only from your perspective, but I've heard it in the press many times, how many kids, especially quarterbacks, love playing for him. Remember, Ron, he was a head coach at Ole Miss at one time. Yep. And for whatever reason, they let him go. But there was a quarterback he had at Ole Miss that ended up being pretty damn good. His name was Eli Manning.
Never heard of him. Yeah, there you go. That's a pretty good quarterback right there. UL Monroe taking on Army. Army. Okay, no, I was thinking of Navy, BYU, but no, Army 42-0 win last week against Middle Tennessee State. Now, looking at the computer pick here, we have Army as a 19-point favorite this weekend against UL Monroe Indians, over under 54. Forecast, though, sees a low-scoring game, 28.96, 15.46, the over-under at 44.42, so 10 points below the total here, Ross. I'm going to take a look at some of the stats here, see if they've never met before. And looking at the numbers here, nothing really that's earth-shattering. But, Army, it's anytime you play these triple option teams, it's really, and they're ground and pound. And because of the academy, right, they don't have times to – their time is limited, and so is their playbook.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those public perception plays, Ron, because people saw Army last week they got a little more attention nationally last week because there was really only 3 games on the board with FBS teams facing each other last Saturday, I should say. And they were real impressive in knocking off Middle Tennessee State. Quite the opposite is their arch enemy, Navy, who was not ready to play. And, the public saw that. UL Monroe is playing their first game. Army was already with a game under the belt, a strong home field. Here's the problem for me. They're getting an enormous amount of public support this week. So much so, Ron, this opened at minus 16 on Monday, and it's now minus 21. When I see that, I'm steering clear.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point. And my law of average theory, which I learned from you a long time ago. Look at Army right here. When they're a home team coming off an ATS win since 96, 4-13-2 against the number. Yeah. So, to me, I think there's a lot of value in UL Monroe. And again, everybody's going in blind and listening to the coaches' clips on this past weekend. You might want to consider a lot of overs this week because if people aren't tackling in practice, and they bet you they started practicing hitting this weekend when they heard the Navy coach talk.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm expecting. I'm going to take a look after the show to see how many totals have gone up.
This one hasn't, Ron. It opened at 58 and it came down to 54. And again, to your point, another perception play, right? Army shut out their opponent last week.
Yep.
And Army's triple option attack that's notorious for going on long time consuming drives. So we'll see. I mean, your point's well taken.
Georgia Tech taking on the Florida State Seminoles. Now the Seminoles a 12-point favorite. The over-under at 53.5. ATS forecast, the computer pick, going to go with Florida State here. 34.04, 17.25. The over-under at 51.29. Georgia Tech here coming in to face the Seminoles. Now the Seminoles did not play last week. Neither did Georgia Tech. They do have some history here. The last couple of years. 2015 was the last time they met. Georgia Tech under Paul Johnson won 22-16, but Paul Johnson's not there anymore, right, Ross?
Oh, no. And we talked about this off air, and I'm going to pick your brain on this. Mike Norvell, by the way, takes over at Florida State, former coach at Memphis. He's got offensive talent galore to work with now. He's had some pretty good developed some pretty good quarterbacks at Memphis, and Paxton Lynch to name one. I think Florida State has a lot of potential. I just would have liked them a lot more in the spot, Ron, if they had an entire off season to install the scheme that Norvell wants to use offensively. Now, having said that, on the other side of the coin is where my question is going to come to you. Paul Johnson left the job 2 years ago. He was there, I think, for 10 years or so, a prolonged period of time. During his tenure, they ran strictly the triple option offense, which, look, Georgia Tech got to a couple ACC championship games, a lot of bowl games. He had a lot of success, but it wasn't a sexy offense for a Power 5 school. So now he leaves and they hire Jeff Collins. And Jeff Collins takes over last year, and now he's saddled with a lot of the players that Paul Johnson had recruited offensively that had been recruited to run the triple option, okay? Now he wants his offensive coordinator he hires wants to run a spread. So as you alluded to with that encyclopedia playbook, okay, that you don't want to overwhelm kids in a transition with too much information because they won't play fast. He broke in slowly last year and ran a little bit of triple option and a little bit of his playbook to try to play to the player's strengths. Now this year, in his second year, I'm pretty sure that a lot of his playbook's going to be in the mix here. I think they're going to more or less do away completely with the triple option. How much a transition is that, number one, and how tough is it, number two?
Yeah, no, it's a big transition because the type of players you recruited for your type of offense as a triple A offense is more towards a running game. So you're recruiting fullbacks, something we don't talk about much these days in fullbacks, right? And when I think of fullbacks and the transition, if I was at Georgia Tech and I looked at the roster and I said, okay, we still have a lot of running backs, some fullbacks. The receivers are more like tight ends because, if you're going to transition into a spread offense, it's going to be a 4-year transition because you got to honor those scholarships and the players that are there. And what I would do is I would transition to a pistol offense, where you use a fullback and maybe a tight end in special packages. But that's one thing I would look at. And maybe you go under center sometimes with that fullback, and then you bring in special packages against different teams with a spread offense if you do have those receivers, because you only got so many hours during the week to practice,
especially during this off season, right, Ron? It's not like it was a typical off season.
Absolutely, because you're only given so many times during system times, and then you don't want too many packages in your offense, because now it's like, okay, let's get the pistol package going here. Okay, the spread package. Well, then now you're running into 3-hour, 4-hour practices, and these players are they're human. They're going to get tired. But the one thing though, Ross, is with this Georgia Tech, depending on the number of players that are still around since the triple option, you're practicing against these players. And if you're running 80% of the time in practice, your defense is going to be good tacklers because they're used to, going and chasing and having their eyes in the backfield. But now when you transition, and if you go from 80-20 to run to, say, 60-40 pass, now you got to, your DBs have got to be more alert. But the tackling is what I'm going to be looking at Georgia Tech this week to see.
Experienced team. I mean, they bring back 19 starters. That's the good thing. The bad thing is that those 19 starters from a season ago were among the youngest in all of college football as far as the starting 22. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a game. It'll be interesting to see what occurs here. There's a lot of intangibles here that we have to look at in this matchup.
Yeah, from a point spread point of view, Ross, Florida State, the last 3 seasons since '96 at home during week 2, 0-8-1 against the number. So
shows you how good Paul Johnson was a recruiter too, Ron. I'm sorry, before I lose my train of thought.
Oh,
somehow he recruited Kelvin Johnson as a wide receiver in his time.
I can tell you from being in that level, there's 2 seasons in college sports. There's the play season and then the recruiting season. And if you can't be weak at either of them.
Yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say? How do you recruit one of the top wide receivers in all of, the guy's probably going to be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. How do you recruit a kid that's got that much upside at receiver and tell him, okay, we're running the triple option offense, but we're going to use you once in a while? That's a tough recruit, and I give him a lot of credit for selling him on it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He'll learn how to block.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be a complete player, right? By the time
Absolutely.
He gets to the NFL. Kansas
taking on the Coastal Carolina. And looking at this line here, Ross, -7 for the Jayhawks, the over-under at 56. I got 44.46 to 22.55, the over-under at 67.01. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything about Coastal Carolina because I'd be lying. But just going to see. There is one history between, and it was a low-scoring game, almost like a baseball game.
Yeah.
Hey, the Atlanta Braves scored more points in this game.
Both of them combined. Yeah.
Yeah. 7-12 for Coastal Carolina. And looking at this weekend, I don't know. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the little thought would be the revenge factor because Kansas lost to them at home last year, 12-7. Secondly, it's Les Miles' second year as head coach at Kansas.
Okay.
He's a proven coach. I mean,
yeah.
as opposed to some of the hires they had prior to Miles, none of them had the resume that he has. They were 3-9 a season ago, Ron, but they also lost 3 games by 6 points or fewer. So they showed improvement, although the record was the same it was the year before. If I had a small lean here, believe it or not, I would have a small lean toward Kansas. I'm not sure I'm going to use this game, but 10 o'clock start, real weird start here, 9 o'clock local time in Lawrence. But in any event, yeah, it opened at 3.5 and has gone up to 7, Ron. So,
wow.
Yeah, some action going on Kansas in this game.
I'm just going to bring in this here. The luxury of having the ATS stats is that you have a lot of numbers that you can throw around.
And they ain't good numbers for Kansas. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Well, the total, so what right here in the last 10 games, home or away for Kansas, the over is 7-3. And when they're a home favorite, and the total is 56 or higher, straight up 5-2 last 7 and 7-3 last 10. So
wow, okay,
nothing crazy.
Most of those situations they were an underdog, though. That's the only thing that it would. I don't mean to make light of it, but
no. And I'm just bringing up numbers just to bring up numbers for just the facts, man, type thing.
That's all.
Yeah, and but you're right. Kansas, they played in a tough conference, and you're playing tough teams, right? When you're, was it Big 12 they played in?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're playing in Oklahoma and Texas, and you're always like near the bottom all the time.
Yeah.
We talk about it in baseball all the time, right? The teams in your conference hopefully they make you better.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, if I can interject real quickly, Ron, Kansas's regular season win total, according to Vegas, is 3. The next closest win total to that in the Big 12 is 5.5. So that tells you the type of conference they play in and how they're perceived.
All right, just gonna take a little look down here to see if there's anything to really talk about. Nothing that I see standing out. But next one, let's take a look at Louisville and Western Kentucky. Yeah. Was it the Hilltops? I think they're called
Hilltoppers.
Hilltoppers.
The Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky.
Yes, sir. Louisville minus 11.5. The over/under set at 58. ATS forecast. The computer pick. You sounded like Colonel Sanders there for a second.
Watching so many of those commercials lately,
All of a sudden, I got hungry for some KFC. So Louisville, 11.5 point favorite. The over/under at 58. The forecast here, Ross, 43.2, 22.6. The over/under at 65.8. Man, that's a high total right there. It's almost like Rick Pitino coaching the Louisville Cardinal here.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I really liked the job that Scott Satterfield did last year in Louisville. His first year there, Ron. He came over from App State. We talked about that earlier. And, they got off to that tough start where they lose to Notre Dame. But then they ended up the year 8-5 and got to a bowl game. And good year. I mean, and Western Kentucky, too. I mean, they're coming off a successful 9-4 season last year. And there's a lot of players returning on both sides on both teams. So this one, again, I'm going to be an interesting observer. I don't think I can make a case for either side in this situation.
Yeah, the total seems a bit high, like for the forecast. And looking at Western Kentucky, the last 10 game as a road underdog, 3-7-0 to the under. And you got a 58 number here. But again, looking at the history between these two teams, 38-21. So you had 59 points scored there, and then you had 37 points here. So a little bit of history with the under here a bit. Yeah.
I will say this. Western Kentucky last year was 8-3-1 against the spread and 6-2 against the spread as a dog, Ron. And usually when that happens, that's hard to maintain in 2 consecutive seasons. And I think it reflects in this line here where the bookmakers have, it's a pretty tight line there. And when you're looking at Louisville right now, what are they right now, Ron? -12, I think.
Yeah.
Or 11.5 in that area. Yeah. So, with all things considered, a Power 5 school hosting a team from Conference USA, that line isn't really as real high, especially when you think about Louisville coming off a nice season last year, and your SOS should show that they played the tougher schedule. So
Yeah.
again, I'm going to take a look and just observe this game, Ron.
From a fundamental point of view, Ross, what I'm
Yeah.
thinking is like you got a team like Louisville. I believe Teddy Bridgewater played there.
Yes.
And they played some games on ESPN. When you get a team like Western Kentucky that doesn't make the ESPN main games and they get lost in that perception versus reality, people they see logos, and they again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a college football guru, but when I see this and I see that Louisville, a popular brand against Western Kentucky, the average Joe is automatically going to lean towards Louisville.
Yes.
And I think that's where perception versus reality and the value that I keep talking about on the Raymond Report, I think there might be some value. And you made a good point right there. Against the spread in the last 15 games, Ross, 10-4-1 for Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
So,
and then same thing what I was alluding to with the Iowa State and UL Lafayette game, right? I mean, similar type of line, Ron. And the brand name, I mean, a Power 5 school against in UL Lafayette's case, a Sun Belt team. You know what I mean? And why is the line so low, especially with Iowa State being currently ranked number 11 in the country?
Yeah, good point. Clemson taking on Wake Forest. Now, 33 double Sweeney, 33-point favorite here against Wake Forest. The over-under set at, let me see here, 60. Yeah. ATS forecast going to go with the Tigers here, Ross. 41.73, 15.17. The over/under at 56.9. So you know what, Clemson. What can you say? One of the top programs in the nation's the last maybe 5-7 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's not spend a lot of time talking about this. I mean, the last two times these teams met, Clemson won 52-3. And 63-3. I mean, again, Dave Clawson's done a nice job at Wake Forest, but you can't recruit at Wake Forest like Clemson can. And there's just too much of a disparity in talent level between these two teams. And it reflects in the line, Ron, especially when you're seeing Clemson on the road beside. I mean, this opened at 31 and it's now up to 34.
Yeah, the under 7-3 in Clemson's last 10 road games when they're labeled a road team.
Yeah, I would just be scared that Clemson could put the game over by themselves.
Yeah, and then we talked about earlier in the broadcast with lack of tackling in preseason, not having preseason. We could be seeing a lot of sloppy football. But that's college football, right? That's
but on the other flip side of that, they don't play a preseason. It's not like the NFL where people are going, well, how sloppy is it going to be because they didn't play any preseason games?
True.
College football never does. To your point, though, they didn't have any spring practice, which is highly unusual. So,
Utep taking on the Texas Longhorn. Now, people are really high on Texas this year. Going into this
they're certainly not high on Utep.
Yeah, that's for sure. 43-point favorite. The over/under set at 58.5. And what was it? A word I used yesterday that got a chuckle out of you there? Reeling. Yeah, they'll be reeling this week.
Reeling. I mean, this is a program, Utep, since 2017, Ron, when they faced BCS foes, 1-32 straight up since that time. So, yeah, again, let's move to the next game.
Yeah, well, remember I was telling you those coaches clinics I go to in Mal Mummy, we keep saying this is a breather. This is how Mummy would call this a breather going into this game.
It's a big exhale in this case,
Yeah, and and another angle, if folks you're watching that you want to do, anytime you see a game like this, take a look what's on deck, right, Ross?
Yeah, you know what, too, Ron? I'll make a point here. And this is something I do on occasion. And I want to share this with you and the listeners. My theory, I have a small theory that when you see a team where their point spread is 33% or greater than the total is, that it's a good idea if you got two separate sports books to bet the favorite and the over, and then at the other one, bet the underdog and the under. Now, that sounds confusing, but if you put 100 on each, for example, your return would be 260 on a winning parlay, and you could. So my point is, in this particular instance, especially 43 for a point spread and 58 for a total. So, I mean, I would think about just the small little wagers, betting Utep plus the 43 and under 40 and under 58, and Texas minus the 43 and over 58.
Yeah,
Just
no,
thought I'd
good
share
one.
that with you.
Yeah, that's awesome tip, Ross. And that's what these podcasts are all about, right? We want to, talk about the game, but also share our knowledge and experience and money management. Like, you'd be amazed how many emails I get from clients asking me about money management, because, hey, and limit, we always talk about, right? Limit the number of games you bet on, because some people, they're going to see a college Saturday and they're going to, let's say that the average guy got $300 in his account, he's going to bet the whole 300.
Yeah, I haven't done a study on that theory, the parlay theory I just told you, for a few years.
Yeah.
But I know I did one back in 2017, and over a 7-year period of time, that theory I just alluded to, when the point spread is 33% or better, 33% or more than what the total is,
yeah,
it was quite profitable, Ron, over a 7-year period of time.
Texas Tech is on deck for the Longhorns, so they do have a big opponent next week. And just taking a look at so Utep.
You have to have some capability with the underdog though in Utep. They the only advantage they have is they played a game already, Ron, and they struggled in that game. I mean, they beat a FCS team, Stephen F. Austin, I believe.
That's right,
24-14 or something like that.
Yeah, and so, but here's I wish there was more volume, but again, another Raymond tickler. Utep coming off a 10-point win since '96, 3-0 in the next game. But
so think about that. Since 1996, they've only won 4 games or 3 games by 10 points or more.
That's pretty
bad. That just shows you the ineptitude of that program.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we call it a tickler, because it makes you laugh.
Tickler, it's a laugher, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great stuff, Ron.
Yeah, that's what's our mission here at the Rain Report, and try to make you laugh. Keep it light. South Alabama taking on the Green Wave of Tulane.
Yeah.
Was it '96? We brought a team up to New Orleans, and we practiced at the Tulane Green Wave Stadium there. It was like a bowl. I'll tell you, Louisiana, they love their football, and they take it really serious at all levels, not just university, high school football. It was a great time. I had a blast. Tulane now 8.5-point favorite. The over/under at 52.5. ATS forecast, computer pick, Ross, going to lean with the Green Wave here, 34.75, 20.09 for the South Alabama Jaguars. And we have this total at 54.84. Now the bookmakers have hung 52.5, and South Alabama 8.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, because my first impulse was, okay, South Alabama's coming off a Thursday night game on ESPN in which they upset Southern Mississippi as a double-digit dog. Now they're a home underdog playing in their second game. Are they a fade? Well, then you look at the line movement in this game, and it favors the home underdog. Sharp money has gone to the home underdog in this spot. And this is a game, again, I'm going to take a look at. I want to see at least Tulane play one game before I jump on them as a road favorite. They're going in the right direction with Willie Fritz as their head coach. They're certainly made giant strides as far as making himself at least a competitive, if not winning program. But, again, how many people is South Alabama going to let in the stadium? I don't know all those factors. I want to see. This is one of those games where you just sit and watch and observe. Yeah. From my standpoint, anyway.
Yeah, South Tulane as a home or away favorite in the month of September, 8-2 straight up, 13-2 last 15. But I don't see too many point spreads. I did see this down here. Again, not enough. Only 4.
Yeah, I think Tulane opened at -11. Ron, what are they now? Like 8.5 or something?
Yeah, 8.5.
Like
The number's at 8.5.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can see if that doesn't work. Okay. All right. So I think that was the last one before we get to Campbell against Georgia. Or no, actually, yeah, that's it, eh?
Yeah.
The rest are just the extra, the writing game.
FCS teams against FBS teams. And Yeah, stay away from those games.
Yeah, no, it's hey, it's week 2, but it's our week 1, right, Ross? And
Yes, it is. Yes,
you
it
know,
is.
and it's going to be interesting to see how after last BYU, that was a real big game.
That was a real eye opener. And I'm so pissed off at myself for dabbling into that game because it shows you. I mean, I understand what the Navy coach was thinking. He's looking out for the better men of his players in terms of health. But by the same token, you go on national TV and you perform like that, and it's just, if you're going to do that, just forfeit the season. Just say we're opting out. I mean, you owe it to college football. You owe it to the TV viewers, and you owe it to the program in general. If you're not going to put your best foot forward, then bow out. Okay, and nobody would have a problem with that, especially at a service academy. But to go into that game so not prepared, and the tackling so shoddy, and they were not to say that BYU wasn't the better team. That's not what I'm implying. But we know what we got from Navy under Coach Niumatalolo. Okay, he's a great coach. I mean, with all things considered, at a service academy, Ron. But to put up a performance like that was absolutely embarrassing, and it really, really bothered me. So
yeah, being an ex-military guy, I can tell you one thing: if I was a player on Navy, I wouldn't want to be at drill parade next Monday.
No, exactly.
Because you're probably still.
But, and then you take Army. And they look the polar opposite, right? Service Academy. On top of that, Army was able to get in all the cadets into the game. The state of Maryland wouldn't even let any of the brigade come in from Navy. There was no people in the stands. So any kind of advantage they had from a home field perspective was wiped out. My point being is this: I'm not crying over spilled milk. It was a eye-opening educational thing in this era. Okay, you have to do more research and see how teams are going, what they did during their summer camp, how they've been preparing. In Navy's case, they did no live tackling whatsoever, Ron. And I don't know how you could play a program like BYU and be so unprepared in that regard and expect anything differently, So, and we're not talking about a matter of whether they would have won the game, because obviously BYU was far the superior team that night, regardless of how well prepared they were or not. But my point is that was just an atrocious performance from a program that prides themselves on being so competitive in such a winning program in the recent decades. So again, folks, really take a look at, we're living in a different era right now, and handicapping these games takes on a whole new meaning. It's unlike nothing me and Ron have ever had to deal with before.
Yeah, no, it was a tough one.
Yeah.
But hey, Ross, 1 hour in the books, college football. Anything to share with your selections this weekend?
Yes. Okay. So I have the NFL 10-star top plate total up tonight. Houston and Kansas City, that's $50, or you can invest into a 1-week package, which is $149. I'll guarantee a profit, or else I'll extend your package, whatever you prefer, but I can't guarantee a 1-day package. You can, same thing at Ron's site, atsstats.com. Whatever I got on my site is mirrored on Ron's site as well. I also have a 5-star winning play tonight in the Miami of Florida UAB game tonight, which is 8 p.m. on ESPN. You can flip back and forth. Again, folks, you don't have to watch an entire game to make a bet. Trust us to make the best judgment. Ron, my September NFL, this is documented by the good folks over at Cappers Access, not Cappers Access, sportscapping.com, excuse me. 99-48 since 2013 with my NFL picks in the month of September. So if you're looking for a jump in the NFL, when lines makers really don't have that grasp in the first few weeks, Ron, as we both know, the lines get sharper as the weeks progress. I've done awfully well in this situation. That's over 67%, folks, and that's independently documented. I don't make records up.
Yeah. I'm going to give a free pick here, Ross. I'm going to go with UL Monroe plus 19 this weekend against Army. I think people are going to see that score.
21, Ron, plus 21.
Plus 21 now, even better.
Yeah.
Army coming off, as I gave the stat here, coming off an ATS home win, 4-13-2 against the number. I think people are going to see that score last week, and they're going to say, who is UL Monroe? I got it with the forecast, 28-15, and I'll take was it 21 now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So plus 21, take UL Monroe. That's my free play on today's college football.
All right, I'll give you a free play then, Ron. I mean, I can't not give a free play after you.
Forcing the Army right on. That's what mission accomplished, folks.
Jam it right down my throat, buddy. I'm going to use. I go back to Les Miles' second year in Kansas, winning 3 games last year. That's it, but 3 other losses by 6 points or fewer. Playing with revenge against Coastal Carolina. And the line opened at 3.5. It's moved up to 6.5 or 7, depending on what you're looking at. And I think for good reason. I think the Jayhawks get off to a good start to the season here against a team from the group of 5 and Sun Belt Conference team. I think Les Miles will have them prepared to play. And I think we're going to see some improvement in this Kansas program this year. It might not show up as far as a winning record, but I think you're going to see a more competitive and relevant Kansas team that we've seen over the last couple decades.
I love the pick. I think it's a great revenge spot, especially being embarrassed at home last year. So great pick. I love it. And it's, was it -7? That's not a big line, right?
6.5 or 7, depending on what you're looking at. And it opened at 3.5, which is, you stop to think the sharp money has gone to Kansas, and it's not like they have this great resume, Ron. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're back in a team that's had very little to any success over the last, I don't know, at least the last decade, right, Ron? So
yeah. And we got it 44-22 for Kansas. So love that.
Oh, there you go. Now, as long as the ATS database, the computer's on my side. One of my better friends, other than Ron.
AI, that's all you got. Yeah, as long as AI is on your side.
Nobody compares to you, buddy. But that computer guy, whoever he is, he's Pradeep, my man out in India. Yeah. He's the best. All right.
Yeah. So. Give him a raise.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Great show. For Ross Benjamin, I'm Ron Raymond. This was the Raymond Report College Sports Betting Edition for Thursday, week 2 of the college football season. Today is September 10th. Again, folks, you can get our top plays at atsstats.com or at rbwins.com. Shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.